An article was brought to my attention the other day that spoke volumes to me about the degree to which the average person willfully lives for and counts on neurotic unrealities in their lives. The article I read was called Paris Syndrome: Culture Shock Sickness Sends Japanese Tourists Packing, written by Lucinda Kent from the BBC Australia. It talks about a transient mental disorder called Paris Syndrome. Let me quickly read it for you, then I'll talk about what it immediately said to me about living in the past and traditionalist hopes of a revival of the good old days. The article reads, quote, Paris syndrome is a psychological condition experienced almost exclusively by Japanese tourists who are disappointed when the City of Lights does not live up to their romantic expectations. The syndrome, considered an extreme case of culture shock, causes symptoms such as acute delusional state, hallucinations, anxiety, dizziness, and sweating, and has been documented by medical journals. So why does Paris make Japanese visitors sick? The French psychiatric journal Nerve cites the disappointment many visitors feel is caused by the over-romanticised expectations of Paris as a city of love, fashion, and glamorous people. The city is a popular tourist destination due to Japan's fascination with all things French. Cities such as Tokyo are filled with French patisseries and luxury French fashion outlets such as Chanel and Louis Vuitton. Around 6 million Japanese people visit France each year. In Japanese popular culture, Paris is associated with romantic films such as Amélie and is thought to be the stuff of fairy tales, cobblestone streets and all. When the reality of the modern city of Paris sets in, with its notoriously rude service and confusing public transport, some tourists simply cannot cope with their expectations being dashed. Combined with exhaustion, language barriers and cultural barriers, homesickness and culture shock can cause serious psychological distress. The Japanese embassy in Paris repatriates up to 20 tourists a year, sending them home with a doctor or nurse to ensure they recover from the shock. The embassy also runs a 24-hour helpline for expatriates experiencing the syndrome. The problem appears to be growing worse instead of improving, as there have been reports of Chinese tourists, part of the country's emerging middle class, travelling abroad for the first time experiencing the syndrome. While lower expectations may prevent the shock, Professor Hiroaki Ota, who first identified the syndrome over 25 years ago, says there is only one cure. The permanent fix is board a flight home and never return to Paris. Bon voyage. Unquote. And interestingly enough, upon hovering over the main image of the article on the website, they offer a hidden morsel of truth that, quote, the Japanese embassy reports many victims of Paris syndrome are single women travelling looking for a romantic experience, unquote. Who else but mainly women would be victims of romantic self-delusion on this grand scale of unfulfilled romance overseas? Men? Of course it's women. Nice way of avoiding the issue, SBS, by hiding it like that. Men go to Thailand for their cheap thrills. Women, on the other hand, go to Paris for their overinflated egos. To the traditional male, if you're listening, this is the female mindset out there you're marrying. Good luck. Hey, at least her personality will be comparable to your children. That should make it easy, right? And I hope some of you, particularly those post-red pill, who have taken your rose-coloured glasses off by now and don't take things on face value so easily anymore, but instead listen, observe, and acknowledge the acceptance of what is out there, however boring or mundane it may be, can see my point. And the point is, describing the truth, good or bad, I'd contend, has an individual leading a more stable life on the whole, in my opinion. I mean, I buy the cheapest lottery ticket most weeks just to toss a coin into the statistical Trevi fountain of luck and have the smallest chance. It costs me barely a thing and that's enough for me, but then I forget about it and get on with my week. I do not sit there all week tolerating a bad job or a bad relationship or bad health, waiting for my winning numbers to turn my life around romantically up ahead someday. No, gentlemen, What this article illustrates is that gauging life based on a unicorn-style outlook is a surefire way to become depressed at the reality that is actually out there in the world. I see this in typical traditionalist men still cleaving for the Nawalt because of their desperation for children and family, for a woman that will hold to her firm values and ideals the same way she promised on her wedding day, and not change her mind up ahead someday. The old notion of it's a woman's prerogative to change her mind will never change, and willfully believing in some mythical woman holding to the virtues and principles of an honourable man that you respect, well, that's just living in fiction, gentlemen. Women aren't like that. I'd have more chance of seeing a snow leopard down my street than a woman not changing her feelings up ahead in the future and then acting accordingly on it. Recently, someone commented under one of my videos about traditionalism, saying, "Now that was depressing," when all I was doing was describing my views on the subject. It's probably why most people these days not wanting to let go of their idealistic romanticism live curated, perfect digital lives on social media and dating sites, never leaving the safety of their couches, keeping the potential romantic possibilities alive the easiest way they can behind a screen, and avoiding facing the nature of others in the analog world, where they portray themselves as they'd like to be and not as they actually are. They talk about what they'd like to do.
I love travelling, shopping, going out,
etc. Not who they've been until now, not who they are now. They idealise themselves into the future and their world. They pick the best photo of themselves to place on their profile, and after choosing from hundreds taken from the same angle and spending the day adjusting it with a perfect photo filter, they wonder why they can't find that old-fashioned guy and why they can't find purpose in their lives. Why, with their whole life spent looking down at a screen, living an insecure, curated, artificially near-perfect and romantic existence on a screen, they then wonder why their lives appear synthetic. Gee, hard one to figure out. And not even going into religion or any isms like leftism, communism or feminism, even without any of that, people are living delusional perspectives of willful romantic idealism. Japanese tourists experiencing this so-called romantic syndrome is not the point of the article, I'd contend. I think it's what it says broadly. This article, to me anyway, opens the door to perceiving what we see the human being doing now. It illustrates how the pedestrian out there, as a matter of course, hamstrings themselves with the mentally destructive delusion that life is as they want it to be and should be, constantly. Think about this. Living one's life in a perpetual longing for your picture of what life should be, disappointed that the sun doesn't revolve around you, wanting the old days to come back if you're a traditionalist, believing men will want to marry you as a middle-aged woman, wanting to relive your youth after you've squandered it. It's delusional. It's not living in reality. Now, Wikipedia defines Paris syndrome as, quote, a transient mental disorder exhibited by some individuals when visiting or going on vacations to Paris as a result of extreme shock derived from their discovery that Paris is not what they had expected it to be, unquote. Now, the important line there was extreme shock of discovering that something is not what was expected. Now, doesn't this immediately bring to mind the disappointment of idealised romantic relationships with women? The naivety with which the traditionalist gleefully enters, only to be met with the tepid scam afterwards. You know, the hot woman you desperately want beforehand, that is revealed finally as only her external shell and nothing more when you finally get her. The much coveted sex you want so badly before, that then seems like just more work at the end of a long day when you finally get it. The neotenous princess who you feel loves you, that after the eventual breakup you realise that she only loved how you made her feel with your utility towards her. Or the thing you want to buy so badly to achieve a perceived contentment tomorrow, only to acquire it and feel scammed and empty afterwards. Or going to bed the night before, romantically motivated that tomorrow when you get up, you'll go for that jog or write that novel or start that diet or finally get your life on track, only to hit the snooze button in the morning. Rinse and repeat. Let me offer some advice, gentlemen. For those of you frustrated by so-called bad luck or the unfairness of things supposedly done to you by the world, or women, or anyone, lower your expectations from your elevated and unrealistic heights to reality. This will stabilize your life. Cherish the small things, the simple things. The simple things can largely be controlled. But hoping for romantic ideals holds your current happiness for ransom by placing it in the hands of other people and things. There's far too much non-self-determination in that current mode of group and left or right thinking to me that everyone paradoxically thinks is freedom because they're simply letting go of reality.
Isn't that freeing? We don't have to think. We don't have to do anything. It's just life.
All I see is laziness and low self-esteem. Most people who have woken up and gone their own way already hated having their lives owned by others then and wanted their freedom. So stop allowing romantic and antiquated notions of yesterday to own you today either, gentlemen. From my own perspective, if I am to expect or count on things, I prefer to accept life in terms of realistic expectations, if I entertain expectations at all. For example, I can in all probability count on the sun rising tomorrow, or waking up tomorrow, or having a drink of water, or brushing my teeth in the morning. I cannot, however, count on the same calming probabilistic reality tomorrow of a stranger keeping their word to me and insisting on me signing over the next 3 or 30 years of my life to them and the state because Pumpkin promises she'll never feel otherwise. Trust her. Yeah, right. A woman never changing her mind. It's like a company never raising its fees or the weather never changing. Realise the realities and limitations of others and things, and heck, even yourself, guys. A man's got to know his limitations, as Clint Eastwood so famously said. You're not going to find your future happiness in Paris or anywhere else. You're not going to find it in anyone else either. But contentment, which can often result in the byproduct of happiness, is the one thing you should aim for, in my opinion. You see, contentment implies a humbling of oneself to reality and then being able to move forward from that basis. And a good start, gentlemen, is begin making your yeses and nos your own from now on. Not in an angry or malevolent or revengeful way, but in a simple, my opinion matters before yours way. I matter. Put your mind, your values and principles first. Expect more from yourself and less from the world in a freeing, casual way. And feel good about owning your life now for a change. No matter how unimportant or uninteresting you think your life is in comparison to others, your life is not a tool for others to use. It's yours. The world and others simply are the way they are, forever lazy and trying to use your efforts and investments instead of their own. But you can choose to live and breathe any realistic and preferable self-determined perspective you damn wish, and apologise to no one. And if all that self-owned singularity sounds liberating rather than depressing, as some people seem to think it is, then going your own way may just be the answer for you. Do as you wish. Later, gentlemen. Please share, like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon once you've subscribed to be notified of my next video. And feel free to donate too. It keeps me creating and I really appreciate it. Cheers.